Good morning, and thank you very much for joining us right here for the big conversation. And it is also a moment for the students, the pupils, and school heads. We're talking about education amidst insecurity. Now, Kenyans are not, I wouldn't say in a panic, but they are concerned about having to commence the national examinations, the long-awaited national examinations, amidst a lot of issues being raised around insecurity or on matters security. We're looking at 12 counties. Of course, if you've been following the conversations right here on the Morning Drift, we've heard security experts come on board to say there are certain counties that we would be a bit uncertain about when it comes to having that, environment for the examinations to continue. However, we also have the Ministry of Education insisting and reiterating that we shall proceed with the national examinations. Also, we have attacks on students as far as banditry is concerned. The latest was the TOT bus being sprayed with bullets, and parents were concerned and asking questions of, are children now a target to, bandits and matters in security? But isn't this a matter of concern, because these are young children, these are minors who only depend on either the schools, the government, or the community to protect them. First, let's take a look at the situation when it comes to preparations for the national examinations. A story from our news desk first, and then I'll bring in my guests who are already seated here. You have seen them. They will introduce themselves, their representation in capacity, and of course, we will now delve deeper into the discussion. But first, this story on the preparations in regards to the national examinations this year.
Mchana wa leo tumepokea mitihani ya somo la home science na woodwork ambao itaanza kufanya Jumatatu mpaka Alhamisi. Ningetaka tu nipeane mwito kwa wanafunzi ya kwamba yale ambayo yameulizwa katika mtihani ni yale ambayo wamefundishwa. Kwa hivyo warevise kwa bidii na wajitayarishe kabisa kuja kufanya mtihani wakiwa wako na imani kwamba watafanya vizuri. Mtihani haujavuja kufikia leo, naweza kuhakikisha hilo. Kwa hivyo mtu wote asiwadanganya kwamba kuna mtihani wataweza kupata wakifanya hili wala lile, ila wajitayarishe. Wazazi wapatie watoto moyo, wasifanye njia nyingine za kutafuta mbinu mbadala za kupata mtihani, manake haupo. Zaidi ya kwenye hii container haupo kwingine. Kwa hivyo watayarishe watoto vizuri, wale vizuri, wapumzike vizuri na waje kufanya mtihani, na zaidi ya hayo yote waombe. Na usalama kwa jumla katika hii sub county tumeimarisha. Doria zinafanya usiku na mchana. Kwa hivyo wananchi wajue ya kwamba tumewachunga kwa ile hali ambayo inahitajika.
All right, now you have followed closely that story. Allow me to welcome my panelists this very day. Happy New Month.
Happy New Month.
Thank you for creating time. And of course, the gentleman, Thomas Ogendo, who is Secretary General, National Youth Policy Alliance. Good morning, sir. Karibu, and Madame Rosalia Mkanjala, who is the Assistant Secretary General, NAT.
Yes, morning.
Thank you very much. Good morning.
Yes.
I'd love to start with you, Rosalia.
Yes.
And I'd love to hear your opening remarks. Salimia Wananchi, they'd love to hear from you. And what do they expect in this conversation?
I am Rosalia Mkanjala, the Assistant Secretary General, NAT. Apart from being the Assistant Secretary General NAT, I'm a teacher by profession and also a mother. And I believe for each and every parent, this is a very crucial time when it comes to the issue of exams, because exams do determine the future of the child. So when there are issues of security, it's a concern to each and everybody. And we believe that this is an issue which will be addressed well, so that the young ones can do the exams without fear, with a lot of comfort, so that they can be able to perform like any other child who is doing the exam without a very unfriendly environment. Mm-hmm. So we are hoping that this issue will be addressed, and the learners will do their work, the exams in a very friendly environment. That's what I can say.
Thank you for your opening remarks. I'm looking forward to also hearing your sentiments on the heads of schools now being arrested. when it comes to matters security. Now we're supposed to be arresting them over cheating, but now we'll be arresting them over security issues as well. But I want to hear from you, sir. What are your opening remarks also?
Okay, thank you. Okay, my name is Thomas Ugendo from National Youth Policy Alliance. And I want to say this is an issue of concern, the issue affecting our students currently on matters in security. It's an issue of concern. And as a policy advocate group, or rather alliance, we are more focused to ensure that the constitutional provision that guides the education stakeholders in provision of security to our students and our institution is implemented to the core.
All right.
Yeah, then the expectation, obvious, we don't want to criticize too much. We want to know what is our responsibility as the citizen, what are the responsibility of the state organs,
All right.
and where do the international entities come in.
All right.
Thank you.
I like how you've just, made that very detailed. It's given us a good guideline of this conversation as well. Thank you very much, sir. Let's start by highlighting the most recent, cause of panic. And of course, 12 counties are now, the ones we're looking at, the ones that are facing a lot of banditry and ethnic clashes, for that matter. Because ultimately, when the cutoff point affects all, students, it's all of them. Whether you did your exam in Wajir, you did it in Turkana, and you did it in Nairobi, at the end of the day, we are using the same standards, are we not? And I'd love to hear from you this morning, Madam, Secretary General Nat,
Yes.
what the teachers' perspectives have been when it comes to now the ministry saying there are certain policies that the head or the schools should put in place in regards to security, and when they're not done, then it is the head of security to answer.
It's a government policy. In 2015, there was an Education Act requiring that each and every institution should have the safety of the children at hand. And there are specific guidelines which were given that each and every institution should ensure that they follow the same. Like we talk of, when it comes, there should be a guard guarding the school either at night or during the daytime. There should be a record of somebody coming to the institution or leaving the institution. They even talked of the size of the classrooms, spacious, airy. The door of the classroom should open from most of the buildings within the schools. The doors should open from outside. The windows should be wide and should not have grills. There's issue also, most of the schools should be fenced. There's the issue also, like if you have fish ponds, swimming pools,
Yes.
the protected areas, they should also be protected. There should be also the fire extinguisher. Within the school compound, there should be some writing giving guidelines, like it's a drug-free area. So things which are very sensitive, there are supposed to be some kind of stickers within the school for the main purpose being security for the children, like talking of drugs and anything which is harmful. So you realize that most of the schools followed the same
All right.
guidelines. So when it comes to that, I think as an institution, when there is a policy or there is a program, each and every person is supposed to adhere to the same. So failure, fine, you might fail maybe because you're not aware, or maybe you lacked resources to implement the same. Because like we have PWDs, every school must have a ramp. Buildings must have ramps for easy accessibility. Anything can happen. Are you seeing?
Yes.
So when you talk of people being arrested for failing to implement the same, someone might have failed to implement maybe because of resources.
Okay.
But I believe they must have been some kind of time frame that at least with this time, within this specified time, you should be able to implement. And it's important to make sure, you see as a parent, when you release your child to go to school, you are also longing to receive that particular child back. May it be a
Absolutely.
boarding school or a
Yes.
day school. So security is a requirement, and so it's good to ensure that it happens.
I want to hear your sentiments. I'm coming to you, sir, on the banditry attack on the school bus, because this is where we even got to understand there was this kind of, policy
Yes.
that was shared with the schools.
Yes.
And it was the fact that was cleared out in the air was that the school bus was out in a given time when it shouldn't have been.
Yes.
Looking at day schoolers, for example, candidates who have to sit and do their preps, that's what they call it, or revisions late in the evening. How are we going to ensure the security therefore? Because at this time of the night or evening, we don't expect movements of school buses, etc.
Of course, you'll never know when a banditry will attack.
Okay.
They can attack at any time. Now, we have schools which are day. I think the only best thing the government can do is provide security for the same. Like now that this is exam time, is done within a specified time, they can look into a way whereby they provide security for the students, whether they are within school or on their way home.
Okay.
So that they can counter any kind of attack. Yeah.
All right, I want us to see a few tweets, and of course, just to mention a few scenarios that have caused me to have this discussion, and of course, I want to hear your sentiments on the same, because you're very vocal about protection of these children. And we have highlighted situations from as early as 2022, of course, of February, people talking about teachers' unions' fault relocation of exam centers from banditry black spots. I don't know if you saw that. It should be on your screen shortly, where now teachers' unions, including, I don't know if Nat had the same voice, of faulting the relocation of exam centers from banditry black spots. And of course, Elgeyo Marakwet Teachers Union distanced themselves from the government's decision to relocate examination centers from banditry hotspots in Kerio Valley to, of course, safer areas. And of course, the Kenya National Union of Teachers, NAT, that was highlighted, and the Kenya Union of Post-Primary Education Teachers, KUPPET, both stated that they were not consulted prior to the directive's issuance 3 days ago. Rift Valley Regional Commissioner Malim Mohammed said on Thursday that the move will ensure the safety of students taking the KCPE and KCSE exams in March and in April. I don't know if you read that. It was in one of our dailies, and I would love to know, because I think that then they would be working in the best interests of the children. But as we see, most of the associations felt otherwise.
I think, one, the government looked for the best way to handle the situation, whereby they looked, let the children who are affected by insecurity be moved in a more secure place where they can do the exams peacefully. But again, these other people who are seeing the move not to be the right one is because they feel by moving these particular students to a new environment, it must be coming with some other issues, like maybe where will they be sleeping when it comes, like if it's a day child, he or she is used to sleeping at home. You might find they share a bed with a brother or a sister, depending on the family arrangement.
Okay. I'd love to hear those two sides of the story. Now, let me come back to you, because we were giving a foundation from a teacher's perspective before we now hear from the Kenya Youth Policy Secretariat. What are your sentiments, first, on the objections when it comes to moving the stations of the examination materials? I would think, just like she said, there's a side of, of that slice that feels it is prudent. Other side seems to have its own, thoughts around it. What are your sentiments?
Okay, fine. My sentiment concerning the same. It was an immediate approach by the government to kind of give safety to the students and the schools, of which I can tell you, it is the responsibility. The student security is segmented into three.
Okay.
Or rather, the education security is segmented into three. The first segment touches directly on students, or rather the children. It states that the government has an obligation to ensure that students learn in a secure and safe environment.
All right.
The second one touches on teachers. The teachers, or rather teachers and also education facilitators, must be provided with a safe operation environment. Then the third one is segmented to the situation of the school, which states a school must be protected even during war.
Okay.
Even during war. So in this case, the government was trying to chip in and ensure that, yes, they have accepted the banditry is affecting the student. So what remedy can they give? They decided to give that remedy. But what is the weakness in terms of the implementation of this remedy? They never engage key stakeholders. So that is why these people are protesting. They feel like their voice are never heard. Their opinions are never respected.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's just a rebellion, two legal entities fighting against each other for the sake of visibility. Yes.
All right, I like that you put it in perspective in a very clear and objective way. However, as we're talking about security, I want us to deviate. We'll come back. Of course, we're looking at the national examinations, but there is a girl child or a boy child that is psychologically unfit. They're not secure when it comes to defilement and abuse. All right, this is just generally talking about the state of these children holistically. And I will also share with you something that was in one of our dailies, major dailies again, that will come to your screen, of histories that we've had, and we've not had NAT or CUPET or other organizations come in to talk about, we are anti-defiling these children. We see you when there is, strikes or matters of, examinations. But I'd love to challenge our secretariat this morning on something I want to share with you as well, of a man that was arrested trying to defile a 13-year-old schoolgirl in a bush. All right, these are certain headlines that have been trending in the country. We've not had voices, and today we'd love to hear, of course, what these unions also, do they concern themselves with such kind of protection for children? We've had, of course, just to read a bit of that, it is that a man was arraigned at the Makindu Law Courts, of course, for attempting to defile a 13-year-old girl in Changinywa village, of course, in Makueni County, and Peter Odongo had followed the minor to school on her bicycle that morning before grabbing her by her neck and dragging her to the nearby bush. Now, the suspect then attempted to take the girl's innocence despite her valiant efforts to keep him away. Now, fortunately for this particular story, the girl was able to fight off the man who had already soiled her, and of course, she had to flee home, where she informed her mother of the incident. Besides that, there's, of course, stories where we've had a child being defiled on his way to school by an Uber driver, students being defiled by their teachers. These same teachers are supposed to be ensuring you're protected. I don't know if NAT and other groups also consider this type of protection for children, because I'm looking at their psychology as we're speaking. They're going into exams, they're fighting the banditry, but have you done a psychological check on these children in terms of fearing the head teacher, who is probably, going to be there supervising the same examination?
What I can say is that teachers are their parents also. So always, if that's why you realize most parents, when they hand over their children to teachers, they feel their children are safe. We don't refuse. These are rare cases when a child is defiled, but normally not from school, mostly on the way to school. So I would recommend that every parent should ensure safety of their children, of how they go to school. That's why we know, as teachers, we advise, let a child not walk alone to school. Always they should walk either 2 or 3 for security reasons, because anything can happen. Like when somebody grabs a young girl from a bicycle, that person might have taken maybe drugs or something. But if this particular girl was with others, would this man really grab? He wouldn't. So as teachers, we normally recommend that if these are coming from the same village or from the same home, let them come together as they come to school. As they live also together. Now, the main reason is security, because anything can happen in between. But once the children are at school, there is 100% safety. Teachers are parents, and their main duty is to ensure that the learners learn and they are fully under safety. And that's why I realize there are even safety measures. And even children at times, they disclose information to teachers more than to parents.
Yeah, like the
because
child
they
with the
feel-
lollipop did
Yes,
disclose
because they
yes.
feel secure when
right.
they're within teachers. We don't refuse. You'll never miss a madman in any market.
All right.
So these are rare incidents. They're not so regular.
I wish to differ. They are not rare. And we in the media highlight them every single time. And these are children. And I will continue to challenge you and the union, because these, as you're saying, are not rare cases. They are very common cases, most of which are not reported yet. And I'd love to hear from you as you're championing for the policy, the protective policy. I also do understand that you're championing for the rights against sodomy. These are boys who we have also highlighted stories of being defiled within those boarding schools. But they are sitting for the examinations. They could be candidates. They could be aspiring candidates. What are you guys doing around that sort of psychosocial or psychological protection to students in schools?
Okay, thank you. You mentioned something very serious, and that now brings the discussion. We have what we call the internal security of students while they're in the institution.
Yes.
Then we have the external security. So where the law is not clear is now in terms of provision of the external security, to whose responsibility is kind of to ensure that when students are affected, or rather when students are sexually abused outside, who handles the case? Because at times you find this student, yes, the child is going through some traumatizing a moment, but due to feeling insecure, due to trusting no one, they feel to die in silence. Now I'll speak as an entity. We have come so strongly to condemn this act. And remember, in 2019, there was a case that was reported to us of a lady who was kind of sexually abused by a teacher. Through the justice centers, we handled the case, and we ensured that the teacher was arrested, charged in court, and later on was relegated. So those are some of the actions.
All right.
Yeah, we have also handled sodomy cases. So for us, whenever we receive the information, we take it so seriously. Then we stop now playing the cat and mouse game. Look deeply into the issue, then bring evidence out of it, then now strategize on kind of ensuring that this student access justice. On psychological, psychosocial effect, it is of course, when somebody, it is obvious, when somebody feels insecure, emotionally insecure, you reason improperly. Reasoning improperly means
It's impaired, yes.
yeah, you are not safe emotionally. You feel emotionally tortured. So then, what is kind of the responsibility of the teachers? What is the responsibility of the state organs? And what is the responsibility of the parent to ensure that this child comes back to senses? The school have their guidance and counseling department.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So the guidance and counseling department can play their role within the school time frame.
And when you talk about the counseling, department, I do know that right now it's very crucial.
Yeah.
Because these are children who have found themselves in the middle of insecurity issues, the pandemic. They're also looking at all these other defilement issues right at the center of the national examinations. So I'm trying to also find out if the school heads are watching, respective teachers are also watching, what are your contributions or sentiments, even as we discuss this solution-focused conversation today on, education amidst insecurity. Talk to us. We're live on Facebook, Look Up TV. And of course, I'm seeing here Mercy Kiambati. Good morning. She's saying security of our children is a collective responsibility by all stakeholders. Well articulate, Madam Rosalia. So there your regards have reached. And I want to now cross over a bit to, an aspect that has been a discussion every time we have examinations, cheating. Yes, it has been. And of course, one of the reasons people have said do not move the stations is, I know you haven't said it, but there are concerns of if we use insecurity to probe cheating, could be a concern.
Cheating really? You see, cheating, if I can say, maybe if it has been happening,
Yes.
maybe in town schools.
In
But
the
rural,
cities. Okay.
rural where there is a lot of insecurity, look at a place like Lam. It's not easy. So I don't know, but I believe of late cheating is not happening. And we cannot look at cheating as the main reason as to why people can object. For me, particularly, as looking at the objection for people to move the exam center,
Yes.
the reason is it creates some kind of inconvenience. You see, there is that you are used to this kind of environment when learning and everything. So being changed to a new environment to go and do an exam, you see,
It's
like,
more psychologically
yeah, so you
disorienting.
are psychologically affected, and somehow it will affect you in your performance.
All right.
That should be the main reason, not the issue of exam
cheating.
cheating.
All right.
Yeah.
And we'd like to hear that from, of course, the NAT Assistant Secretary this morning. We love to involve teachers because at some point, like you said, you are the immediate second parents. We should also hear from students. I know some of them have access to watching this on Facebook, and because your voice is very important, I accept we wouldn't bring you on board because first you're minors, and secondly, you're preparing for examinations. But if you get a chance to talk to us, please do on this particular platform, Look Up TV on Facebook. I take a short breather. But when I come back, I might touch on if these matters of insecurity cause panic and fear, and psychologically students are also not checked and protected emotionally, could this be the reason we see arsones, protests towards when we're about to begin examinations? Could it be? Could be a question we'd love to ask ourselves as well as we discuss this. But after the break, please be part of the conversation. We'll be right back.